Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to go over program performance reporting for the federal fiscal year 23. We're going to do a couple of housekeeping items first. Let me just start by introducing myself. My name is Amy DeVille. I am the newest ITAC team member and the Training and Technical Assistance Administrator. And of course, we also have the wonderful Cheryl Matney with us today too. Thank goodness she's here. She's all the brains of the operation. And Sarah Newell Perez, who is our OIDD program specialist, is also on the call today too. So thank you for joining us. Just a few housekeeping things. We do have ASL interpreters on, and so if you need the ASL interpreter, please make sure that you pin them to the top of your view so you always see the interpreter. We also have captioning available if you need closed captioning. And also in the chat box, there is an option for Wordly. There's a link in the chat box. If you need captioning in a different language, Wordly will allow you to choose the language that you need captioning in, and we'll provide that captioning. So if you need that, please open it, select your language, and enjoy. Please keep microphones muted. We have a lot of people on the call today, and that just helps everybody be able to hear. We will take questions, of course, because we understand people are going to have questions. Please put them in the chat box during the presentation. We'll pause before we move from one section to the next and take questions, answer what we can. And then at the end, we should have time to take additional questions. So just be prepared with questions. Let's see. Okay, just a note as we get started. We are doing this training a little early this year in September, and that is just so that councils have the information early. Some councils want to start on their performance reporting in October, and so we want to make sure that everybody has the information and the guidance that they need to be able to really kick that off as early as they want. So that's why we're starting a little earlier this year. I think that's all the housekeeping items. If I remember something else, though, I'll let you know. Okay. So just to start, we're going to start by reminding ourselves about the purpose and the importance of the report. The DD Act requires councils to prepare and submit an annual report with information about the progress made by the council in achieving the goals of the council. The PPR is a compliance document because it's required in the DD Act. So ACL, AOD, and OIDD, as approved by the Office of Management and Budget, they are the people who are determining the content that is in the PPR. How does ACO use this information that we provide in the program performance report? They are using this performance data for accountability, for reports to Congress, for budget request justifications, and also for congressional and public requests. Here are our resources that we want to make sure that everybody has. These are going to be helpful in the development of your performance reports. That first link is just a link to our website, itachelp.org, and it will take you directly to all of the documents that we have about program performance reports. The second is our guidance for completing the program performance report. That is this year's updated guidance. It is already on the website, and it has been for at least a week or a little bit more. So if you have not taken a look at it yet, make sure that you get yourself a copy and familiarize yourself with it. The federal performance measures document is OIDD federal performance measures. It just tells you what the performance measures are. The review tool for the PPR is a very important, very helpful document because this is the review tool that your program specialists use when reviewing your PPR. And finally, if you have any issues with the Verity system, any issues, any questions about anything that's Verity related, this is their help desk email address. So keep that handy. Hopefully no one encounters any issues this year, but in case you do, that's the email address you're going to use. We are going to go through all 6 sections of the PPR. We recognize that there are some really seasoned veterans of PPR reporting on the call. And you're probably just here to see what's changed. But there are also people on the call who have probably only done this once or maybe never done a PPR before. So we want to make sure that everybody kind of gets what they came for. So we'll go through the whole, we're just going to go through the whole shebang, section by section. So here's section 1, identification. FYI, this is the easiest section to complete. So this is the fun one. You just provide the requested information that they're asking for and make sure that the PPR contact person is someone who can answer questions about the information in the report. If your program specialist has a question, who do you want them reaching out to be able to provide an answer quickly? Section 2 is comprehensive review and analysis. And there are 2 updates that you need to put that they're asking for within this section. One is adequacy of healthcare and other services, supports, and assistance that individuals with developmental disabilities and intermediate care facilities receive. And make sure that if in your state you don't have ICFDDs, that you state that within that section, that you let them know we don't have any ICFDD facilities in my state. The other update is the adequacy of healthcare and other services, supports, and assistance that individuals with developmental disabilities served through home and community-based waivers receive. This slide is some updated guidance on what you need to put in each of these sections. So for each area, both the ICFDD facility and the home and community-based waiver services, summarize the types of services, supports, and other assistance that people with IDD receive, the need for additional services, and also provide a statement based on your understanding of the information that you reviewed that really speaks to the adequacy of those services. And adequacy can be described in terms of quality, but it can also be described in terms of populations served versus need. One more reminder, providing a link to a search engine or to a report is not enough. Make sure that you summarize the information that you would otherwise link and put that description within your update. Do we have any questions about up until now, the CRA update?
We do not.
Okay. Great. We're just moving on through.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
That statement, should the CRA end with that statement or begin with that statement so our reviewers know exactly where it's located?
Your choice. Your choice. You know, the format and the I don't know, the style that a council writes a PPR in is up to you. They are not prescribing where it needs to go. So if you want to start out with the statement and then layer down, that's fine. If you want to do it the other way, that's fine as well. And there is a question about character limits. You will notice in the guidance, the character limits are not there. And that is a Verity system item, but the character limits did not change. So this is, again, I think these are huge character limits. If my memory serves me correctly, correctly, 50,000. Nobody expects you to fill the character limit. Okay, so just know, because there's 50,000 available does not mean that your ACL people expect to see all 50,000 filled up.
Okay. Great question. All right, now we're going to move on to section 3, which is state plan implementation. There are 3 reporting areas within this section: an introduction, an evaluation of state plan implementation, and input on national priorities. So we'll go through each of those, starting with the introduction. And this is new guidance for the introduction. So at a minimum within this portion, provide the following: an organized summary that describes major highlights of your work for the reporting period and significant accomplishments for the reporting period. In other words, this is your time to shine. This is where you brag about the great things that your council has done. You're talking about the major highlights of your work, the significant impacts that you've made over the year. And then you also need to provide a description of how the council will share an annual report with partners, collaborators, and the public, and include information on how the council will make that report available in accessible formats. One thing that Cheryl and I just kind of want to give as a tip is really write this summary in a way that is reader ready. Write it as if you know that this summary is going before Congress and being read by members of Congress. That way it is ready in case it gets pulled out and used for something. So you really want to make sure this is a very well written section. Another thing is, if you can illustrate some of your major highlights and your significant accomplishments with a story, then include that here as well in your introduction. Then the next part of the introduction is cultural diversity. This part has not changed from last year. The DD Act requires that all council projects and activities and program implementation be conducted in a manner that's culturally competent. The information provided in this section should demonstrate the council's efforts to meet the requirements during the reporting period. You want to describe the overall efforts that your council is making to conduct projects and activities in a way that is culturally and linguistically competent. And so it might help to sort of frame it as answering the question, what has your council done to help make sure that people with developmental disabilities and their families from a diverse background are benefiting from the council's work? And the DD Act they do define culturally competent, and I'll read that to you so you have it, but you can also look it up in the DD Act, section 102. It is the term culturally competent used with respect to services, supports, or other assistance means services, supports, or other assistance that is conducted or provided in a manner that is responsive to the beliefs, interpersonal styles, attitudes, language, and behaviors of individuals who are receiving the services, supports, or other assistance, and in a manner that has the greatest likelihood of ensuring their maximum participation in the program involved. And that is cultural diversity. The guidance here really hasn't changed. Like I said before, this is going to follow what you did last year. Then the next part of section 3 is evaluation of state plan activities. And some of this is new guidance. The information requested appears in 2 different fields: B1, which is about activities used, and B2, which is where you're going to report overall results and an assessment of progress towards your 5-year goals. So B1, evaluation activities, the purpose here of this section is to assess to what extent your council implemented the evaluation plan. as you submitted it in your state plan. Include a description of evaluation activities used to assess the projects and activities during this reporting period. So it would probably be helpful if you pulled out your state plan and looked at what you submitted in your evaluation plan and use that to inform B1. Did you use the evaluation plan that you set out in your state plan? And if so, you want to make sure that you mention that, talk about that here. If you made any changes, if you added or you changed any of your evaluation activities, you also want to mention that here. So that's B1 and B2, and this is new guidance as well, is evaluation results. Here you're giving a summary of overall results. This is including broad evaluation information for activities worked on during the reporting period. So you're going to include these bullet points. Provide a broad assessment of the overall progress towards each goal and objective for this reporting period. And make sure that you supply whatever rating scale you use. So the example here ranges from no progress all the way up to excellent progress. But if you use a different rating scale, make sure that you supply that rating scale. You also want to provide the grand total number of people with IDD, family members of people with IDD, professionals, and other groups that took part in council-supported activities. So this is all the people that took part in your supported activities. This is using the information from IFA 1.1, which is the people with IDD, IFA 1.2, which is family members, and then SC 1.4, which is your professionals and other people who took part in council supported activities. You're taking all of those, adding them together, that's your grand total number. You also want to provide overall satisfaction results for all state plan activities for this reporting period. So again, this is a grand total from all of the work. And then finally, if you did not collect key data, so for example, demographic information, and by you, we mean both you, council staff, or you, subrecipient, then explain why that information was not collected and what the council and subrecipients as appropriate will do to make sure that that data is collected in the future. What changes are you going to make sure that that data gets collected in the next year? And then
Amy, question about that.
sure.
Is that if you did not collect it, would it, or if you collected it and it was left blank?
If there was no effort to collect the data.
Okay.
So if you know, some I'm just going to, you know, give you some examples. Some councils may not have been proficient across the board, across all grantees in doing any surveys or collecting data about the activity. And so if they only did a certain grouping of their projects and activities, then, you know, we would really recommend that all projects and activities have some sort of evaluation activity attached to it. But somehow, if a grouping of, you know, if there was a reason that, you know, a whole group of your grantees didn't collect anything, not that they didn't get an answer when they attempted to collect. So it's not about not answering the question. It's more about, if there were no data collection activities, what will the council or the subrecipient do to improve that?
Thank you for that clarity, Cheryl.
Nia, and then Kristen Larson.
Hi, yes, I might have misheard you guys or misremembered when you said it, but I think you had said at the beginning of this whole evaluation section that this was changed but I'm not, it sounds very similar to me to the past. So I'm wondering if there's certain sections you could point out that have changed, or if I just misheard you on that.
So B1 did not change much. The only change in B1 was the really making a statement about to what extent were you able to implement your evaluation plan as submitted in your state plan. Okay, so the description of evaluation activities did not change. The assessment to the extent you were able to implement your submitted evaluation plan is new. In B2, the broad assessment of overall progress, that did not change. What did change was the grand total number who took part, a grand total overall satisfaction, that those two elements are new. The collecting key data item is not new.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
So my follow-up question, Cheryl, would be that third point, the overall satisfaction results for all state plan activities. So it's kind of like, how do you, like a grand total number, but we have some projects that are successful at getting that and some that are not. So how, I'm really confused how we're supposed to answer that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so if that is, and no one's telling you, you know, I get that some projects are more successful than others. You may want to, and we can check in with OIDD, but if I believe this stuff is reported by goal, is satisfaction reported by objective or by goal?
I think it's by goal.
I think it's,
Yes, Cheryl, you're right.
okay. So in that case, if you know, you could list your goal, like if you wanted to list satisfaction by goal and then draw a conclusion there about, you know, overall we had a 75%. However, here's the breakdown. I mean, I guess you could.
Okay.
Nia?
Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of following up on Kristen's question, with a lot of this, like the first bullet and the third bullet, and this whole section, I think, is the one I've struggled with the most in every PPR, because in order to answer the questions, you are essentially doing what you're doing in the goal narratives and the objective narratives. So I guess I still don't really understand how this is different from those. And, you know, if there were any further guidance that came from that work group or the decisions on it, that would be helpful, because I feel like it's always a struggle.
Yeah, I think what they, you know, what we were really trying to get at was to try to somewhat, you know, our whole goal was trying to reduce the duplication in the PPR. But the broad assessment, you know, towards your goals and objectives, you know, that's just making the statement about you know, where you are on your rating scale. The grand total number, though, how many people took part in your activities, how many people were satisfied with those activities. That was to really just give a snapshot of, you know, the absolute total reach. Totals are not, they're not automatic in this report. So wanting to bring that forward. But I think maybe if we, you know, trying not to, this broad assessment, supply the rating scale. On goal 1, did you make significant progress, excellent progress? Goal 2, you know, where are you on that? So that it is in a very much a snapshot section. Sarah, I don't know if you want to make any comments on this one.
No, I think you've covered it. And I think that certainly it might be a conversation for a future peer-to-peer, just to kind of understand everyone's process a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Amy?
Yep. All right, so then the next part, B3, is lessons learned. These are insights from a project or an activity that can be usefully applied to projects and activities. So describe what was learned and how the council used the information on state plan activities during the reporting period, or how you intend to use the information in the upcoming year's plan activities. And then the third and last part of section 3 is national priorities. And here, the purpose here is to provide OIDD with input on possible national priorities for the Administration on Disabilities and areas for potential collaboration at the federal level. So a good example here might be if in your state or territory, emergency preparedness is a priority, you might want to recommend that ACL partner with FEMA, with national disability organizations and other federal entities to make sure that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families are represented and involved in all aspects of emergency planning at the federal level. And this is the end of section 3. So do we have any additional questions here? Not looking like it. Okay, great. Then we're gonna move into section 4, which is state plan implementation. Cheryl?
Sure. So you can move forward. There's, we're going to talk about the detailed progress report on your goals. And so this particular section, in fact, section 4 did not change very much. So we're not upsetting too many things that you probably have in process as processes in your council, but you'll see the same stuff in the Verity system. This particular section is reported by goal. You will check off some boxes about the areas of emphasis that were addressed during the reporting period. And some folks have asked about why are areas of emphasis required, because councils don't necessarily work inside very discrete silos. And the reason areas of emphasis are required is it's required by the DD Act. And so this is the way for the administration to capture that information and remain compliant with federal law. You'll also check off the boxes about strategies used and the collaborators that participated. And so you already planned all of these. You planned the areas of emphasis, planned the strategies, and planned the collaborators. Now, this piece in this report is for you to indicate what happened during the reporting period. The next section is the narrative, the goal narrative. So this is the section, and last year it was 10,000 characters, so that's what you're gonna get this year. But this section is for you to describe the progress made, or in some cases not made, towards the 5-year goal. And it's really, remember, it's for the reporting period. So now you are, and I know we've just talked about it for the evaluation results, but you're bringing that statement of assessment, you're re-indicating that statement of assessment. You also are telling the reader and providing information about your justification for coming to that statement of progress, how you determined it. You do need to make a statement if you need to amend a goal, which remember is the very official, the goal has to be changed so significantly that it needs to go out for a 45-day public comment. If you need to amend a goal, state it here. If you do not need to amend a goal, simply write, there are no goal amendment needs. Something to that effect. We do not need to amend a goal. What has changed, and I think all of that pretty much is the same as last time. What has changed is the addition of the dollars leveraged amount and information by goal. So I know this is an additional thing here. I think you all had been asked to do it by objective. For the sake of easing that reporting burden, put it in the goal section. It's less cumbersome and it will paint the picture a little bit better about what the dollar amounts are tied to a 5-year goal and information about it. Describe what those dollars leveraged will do. So if you worked on a public policy project or effort and advocated for higher direct support professional wages and that was successful, then you would indicate how many dollars leveraged and that the increase in wages. So Nia?
Hi, yeah, I was just, you kind of just started talking about it, but I don't do our financial side of things. So maybe others know this, but is dollars leverage, I understand from my colleague Jason, that's different from a match. Can you define that? Because the example that you just gave is something that's a whole new level of tracking that, you know, I don't think we would have that from a policy perspective. We mainly do it with, you know, grant like matching funds, but the idea of what, you know, that's almost like an outcome from policy efforts, if I understood your example correctly.
Yeah, and some councils do it differently. So there are a variety of concepts on this, but dollars leveraged really refers to additional funds that result from a council investment of funds. So it's kind of like a gain of the council dollar. It's a return on the dollar. And remember, dollars leveraged is not, it doesn't meet match requirements. Funds can be public, they can be private, they can be federal, because dollars leveraged are not part of your financial reporting. This is merely to indicate, so match is not, would not be counted as dollars leveraged. Okay, match truly is matched towards your projects and activities and must meet the same level of accountability and allowability as, you know, your code of federal regulations indicate. So dollars leveraged is really, you know, if you take on an activity, several of your peer councils, you know, participate on work groups or on collaboratives that do a public policy initiative. They do grant writing to secure additional grant funds for a, you know, an employee, like the newest awards on employment activities. Well, the council investment might have been staff time, might have been public policy efforts, advocacy efforts. And so it really is, you know, as best you can. I mean, these are, you know, you're not having to submit a spreadsheet on this. I know this is difficult to do, but in the areas that you feel that you can accurately capture that kind of information, you are free to do so. You are free to report that as dollars leveraged. Your other partners, your DD and network partners, it's my understanding that some of them do report dollars leveraged as well. Just as a way to show that councils really do garner other people coming to the table to participate in keeping things going. And Sarah Newell Perez, is dollars leveraged optional to report?
If councils have dollars leverage, they should report them. They're not captured in any other financial report, such as the SF 425. So really the PPR is the opportunity to report those. And so it's been historically captured within the document. I think you're just asking for it to be put into a different section, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was in the objective section, and now we're just kind of moving it forward to the goal narrative. Let's see, Pam, let's see, Jason.
Yeah, so just kind of
comments.
tagging on to what Nia had asked. So if we don't have, as an example, dollars leverage to report in this section, is that going to be looked upon negatively, maybe by ACL, the reviewers that review the PPR, if we don't report that information, if we don't have it or haven't been tracking it?
No, if you don't have dollars leverage to report, we've never held that against a council, but it's good to know kind of the results of your initial investment and where it's gone to. So as much as you can capture that information, or it might be a matter of getting with your fiscal staff to collect it, but it is helpful to have that in the PPR.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we've got some examples of dollars leveraged in the guidance document. And so you might want to check that out. You know, sometimes councils are very successful in getting either pieces of projects sustained or activities sustained with other funding. Like the state says, that is so neat. We want to take that on. You don't need to do that anymore. We're going to carry it forward. You can, you know, you can use that as dollars leveraged, but it's during the reporting period. Just remember, it's during the reporting period. And Charles is giving you guys a really great tip. Ask your grantees to report dollars leveraged on your quarterly report. You know, if it's appropriate for the project, basically. Okay, let's move forward. The 4-year overview, which does not apply for the 23 PPR, but we're giving you the full information in the guidance document. This will be due in 2025, so you set this aside for right now. This has changed somewhat. It's a little bit simpler, less cumbersome, but you're basically identifying what your current state plan efforts are that would likely move forward, and you know, provide a rationale as to why. Are you going to build upon any of your current efforts? And if you're not building upon those efforts, give an indication why. Other people might be taking up the work, or you know, the effort was already, you know, if it was systems change, it was fully implemented and sustained. So pretty easy, much easier way for you guys to address that. The 5-year overview, or the 5-year outcome analysis, has changed. So this would be due in the 2026 PPR. So all the guidance is saying is use your 5-year goal outcome statement as your guide. These are the statements you submitted with your state plan. You had your 5-year goal, and then you had a goal outcome statement that accompanied the goal. Assess the extent to which you achieve those outcomes. Describe your major accomplishment. Describe anything that got in the way of you being able to achieve the goal. And then describe the extent to which people from diverse backgrounds were satisfied with your activities. So that kind of stuff really didn't change. Lee, I don't think these sections will populate for you in your 23 or 23 or 24 PPRs. I think the Verity system is set to bring them forward during the year that they are due. So just didn't want to leave it out. So it's nothing to really get worked up about right now. Save that for later. Okay. Some of this information, of course, did not change. So you'll still, on the objectives, you will still see a series of questions appear. And you do need to respond, or every one of them has to have a response. And so I know you all remember that the questions are asking you, is this individual and family advocacy, systems change, or capacity building? Is it new, ongoing, or completed? Is it self-advocacy? Is it targeted disparity? Is it DD network collaboration? Or is it a demonstration project? So you've indicated this in your planning. You do indicate, so you're just indicating what it is. The change was on the stage of implementation for activities under that objective. So this is for any activity. We recognize the system was calling for you to fill it out for any activity, not just a systems change activity. So for your objective activities for the reporting period, you're just indicating, were you in the planning phase of it? Were you in the implementation phase? And if it was a systems change effort, was the outcome realized? Meaning, was it fully integrated? If you were working on a regulation change, a law change. So that is the only difference in this particular section. And we do have some kind of explanatory notes on what planning means, what implementation means, and what outcome and fully integrated truly means. With objectives that include many activities, how do we address each one? This is by objective. So you're gonna, I believe this is our best fit answer. It's not the greatest, but it's the best fit answer. It's not by activity, it's by objective. And so you just need to do your best to check off with all of those activities under the objective, what best fit. So I do understand, Janet. I got you. I love your little emoji there. Then you will move on to the overall description of the objective. I believe the wording in the template is effort, but we're talking about the objective. And so you just, nothing's changed here. You just want to include some information to help someone understand what they're getting ready to read about. And then you provide context. It does provide context for the details. So you might want to tell folks, about the broad activities, meaning training, outreach, educating policymakers. Who was the focused population? Was it people with IDD? Was it family members? Was it everybody? Was it a community? And then you can, you're trying to give context. So, you can say, it was a statewide project. It was in the North, in the South. And, it's a new activity, or maybe it's an ongoing activity. So we have an example of an overall description that's in one paragraph to offer for you as a guide. It's a pretty succinct statement, just saying, this is what our objective was designed to do. This is this is what we see, this is what happens, and it was focused on these folks, and you know, it might give you some insight. The next area is you all have planned your output, and this will ask you what they were. You know, it asks you, did you achieve them? And I think it's a yes or no. so if you just check what it is for your reporting period. And then I believe we move on to the progress report, which is 2 sections. The first section is for you to discuss the activities you implemented. The second section is for you to provide information about the assessment of progress. And so this guidance did not change much. However, this is where we took out the dollars leveraged and moved it to the goal narrative. So that if you do a comparison between the old guidance and the new, that's the big shining one here. Just want to remind everybody to include the performance measure numbers for your activities under the objective. The numbers, you know, if you have 12 activities, the numbers should add up to the performance measure that you're going to report in the data section. So that's been something that has been a challenge, and it's not consistent. So we do want to call your attention to that. Then you also have to indicate what outcomes you achieved. So remember, you planned your outcomes. Now the system is asking you, did you achieve them? Pretty simple checkoff box there. And then you'll move into your discussion. You know, you want to really answer the question, did we make progress on our objective? So you just really want to discuss, you know, what is your assessment towards this objective? We're recommending that you kind of do a lead-in summary statement. Try to make it no longer than a paragraph about your prior year's progress, to really give some context for what a reader is seeing with this year. So, you know, this is really about the overall objective. Did you continue to make progress? Did you, you can use data to illustrate your statement here. No problem there. But you really want to, this is the progress towards achieving the outcomes for the overall objective. So you're looking at what all of those activities did and then making an assessment about the entire objective. Let's see, let me look at these questions. You have addressed the federal performance measure by type of activity. Yes, that would still be okay. I know you're California and you do have thousands of things. Nia, we've been confused in the past about the activities narrative. It seems like we need to report outcomes there in addition to the separate outcome. So the assessment, so I think you're right, Nia, you're talking about what you did. The outcomes are in the progress report section. This particular section about the outcomes for the overall objective is really about the overall objective rather than outcomes that you may have brought forward by key activity. So, you know, if your earlier section is really reflecting your activities that you conducted as part of the objective, then, you know, you'll want to, in this progress towards achieving outcomes for the overall objective, you do want to bring all of that information together and make that assessment. I guess it really depends on how you built, you know, how your earlier section was crafted. So, and we do have an example in the guidance document. Let's see. Okay, Philip's asking about sharing a story that was captured and made into a video. Can we include that link? You could not include a live link. A Verity system does not accept a live link. So, you know, one thing, and Sarah, I think they can send links and information about things like that directly to you all, their assigned program.
Yes, I was just about to type that in the chat that
Right,
we
thank you.
appreciate any you know, stories or links that might highlight some of your work. So feel free, in addition to the PPR, that, you know, if there's really things that would be best expressed that way, to send them to Jack Brandt or myself.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, just remember, Verity will not accept a link. It will, your report can't go anywhere. So the system will block it, and you will be very frustrated if you try to include a link. The stories, though, we just eased the information and the way the instructions are written. You know, the whole purpose of these stories is for you all to illustrate how your work affected people with DD, how your work affected service systems, how your work affected public policy. And you are free to include stories from different points of view. You can include stories from people with developmental disabilities, family members, community members, policymakers, providers. So, you know, that really is up to you. Whatever you want to submit to illustrate really the important work you've done in this period, that's what the stories are really designed to do. Okay, so one of the major things that changed in this particular guidance document is the inclusion, a full inclusion of the performance measures. So one of the recommendations from our work group was, it is too difficult to look at 3 different documents and try to put it all together. Just put it together for us, and that's what we did. So you will see in the guidance document that we've included a lot of information about the performance measures. So again, demographic data and output measures. Demographic data is reported by goal. So make sure that you include your demographics by goal. And then your output measures are really the total number of people. And these would be people with developmental disabilities and family members of people with developmental disabilities who participated in one of your council supported activities. So we've given you some information, a lot of information in the guidance document about what you're to report. And so remember, you know, these are participation numbers related to activities designed to increase knowledge of how to take part in decisions that affect their lives, the lives of others, and/or systems. Pedra, you're asking about the SOGI data in the demographics or only on the spreadsheet? So in the PPR, nothing has changed on the demographics. You still have a gender section, so you would report according, just like you've always done in the past. The spreadsheet, you can, but here's the deal. So you can bring your data on gender identity or sexual orientation, anything you've collected, to the extent you could collect, you would then put it on your spreadsheet. So just pay attention to what the PPR is requiring, and then just know that you will be using the same data for that specific spreadsheet as the data fits. Does that answer? Okay, good. All right. So we've included some information on the respondents. This has been one of the most confusing parts of our data collection. So we wanted to really vet this very carefully, which we did. It took months, and thank you to all of you who helped me out with this one. But really, respondent is the number of people from those two categories, people with DD and family members, that responded to a survey or an evaluation about an activity that was about an activity designed, and you can read the rest to increase knowledge. And we know that you'll have the participant number. So you have 100 people that come to an event, and good for you if you get 100 people to respond to your survey. But the idea here for this number is how many of those participants responded to your survey. Remember, the numbers on this line are then going to be used to calculate some percentages as you move forward in the data report. So outcome measures become our next area. And so these are reported as a percentage. And what we wanted to do here is just give you, a quick calculation. To do this, we've given you some instructions here, and then provided you an example. And so we're using the performance measure 2.1. And that is the percent of people with developmental disabilities who increased their advocacy. So if you had 75 people fill out responding to your survey, right there, that's the respondent number. And 57 of those 75 said they increased their advocacy. Then that means 76% of people who participated in your event and filled out the survey and answered the question positively, that would be your outcome measure number. There's a lot of information in the guidance document. We hope it will make sense to you, but please let us know if it does not. And this is the same process for every sub outcome measure. So you're being asked what percent of people. So you do need to know how many people responded to that survey question, and then and of that, how many people responded to the survey question, of course, and using your respondent number, how many people responded to your survey. So we're not making the assumption that 100% of the people who responded to your survey will all respond positively. It's designed to let you then evaluate of that number. What is it? Let's see, systems change data. This is all full information in the guidance document now. So no need to go to another document. Let me capture If professionals attend a training and fill out a satisfaction survey, is this recorded here? No. It's only, you are only capturing data for individuals with DD and for family members of people with DD. However, that information is valid data. So what you may want to do is put this in the narrative. If you had 75 professionals attend a training and 85% said they increased their skills and knowledge, that would be a really great item for the narrative. The data section is specifically designed for the two categories until we get over to systems change. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. All of this data is reported as a number, and just remember, systems change efforts are considered active, which means reportable, if you worked on that during the reporting period. So it can be the same systems change effort from a prior year, because we know that your work continues year after year. And, so if you worked on it, it was active in the reporting period, then you can report against it. Let's see. Oh, promising practices. Okay. Just we did provide some additional information on promising practices created, best practices created, and supported. Both have created and supportive as measures. If you're creating a promising practice, you do need to be able in the narrative to show the practice, had an innovative approach that improved upon existing practice with positive results. But of course, a promising practice does not have to be researched and tested. So promising practice, a lot of councils do great work in this. So just really make sure if you've got a promising practice created that you are talking about it. But on the promising practices supported, the number you put here is related to the systems change effort rather than the number of times a practice was used. So in looking at the just raw data, it looks like councils are counting the number of times promising practices are being supported, because there are large numbers in this particular category. So really it's the practice, not how many times it was used. So I hope that makes sense. And then same kind of theory for best practices. Now, best practices created is a pretty high test here. So you must be able to show that a technique or methodology, some sort of method, has proven to reliably lead to a desired result, and proven through experience and research. Typically, a best practice created has a journal article, research, and a journal published article to go with it. It really has to meet a very high standard. So we do have councils that create best practices. It's very infrequent that that best practice is created in a 12-month period, because there's generally not enough time to put the practice in place, make sure it reliably, over and over and over again, reliably leads to the desired result and meets the test of the research aspect. So, and same theory with best practices supported. This is not the number of times a best practice is used. This is the best, it's the practice itself. So if you're using one best practice in 12 different ways, in 12 different activities, or however you're counting it, it's really one best practice that you're using multiple times. Okay, the SC 1.4. Okay, so ideally here is we're looking for other people trained as part of a council systems change effort, not other people trained outside of a systems change effort. So you can report other people trained for any of your other stuff in your narrative, but to put it here in this data section, it really needs to be tied to your systems change effort. And remember, you're reporting other people. So people with developmental disabilities and family members, they are counted in the IFA section. Please don't ask me why, because I can't answer that question, because I think it's just where the data goes. Now here, the data here that you would put other people trained or educated. Training and education really needs to be followed up with kind of some evidence that they increase knowledge, or there was an attempt to increase knowledge or increase skill. This number is not to include public awareness. So if you are counting website hits or newspaper articles, op-eds, blogs, vlogs, any kind of, I guess it's an X now, not a tweet. I'm sorry, I'm not all up on my social media. Magazine articles. That's not people trained or educated. And then I would follow that up with saying, you will, to report here, you really should have something in the way of a evaluation that says, I increased my knowledge, right? Or, you've got these people participating, you did some follow-up survey evaluation on, they learned, maybe people didn't learn, but they attended. So, but you would have something. Oh, do you still tweet on X? Okay, good. That's all good. So other people train, just make sure you're getting those numbers, because I believe that your reviewer will reach out and ask for clarification should that number be large, like larger than, is an outlier. Let's just call it that way. Okay. Amy?
Yeah, there's a comment that just was put in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, Nia. Best practice be defined if you support data collection and analysis. Is the practice the same for both? I guess that is the best practice itself counted in both arenas, in healthcare provider demographics and barriers to dental care.
Yeah, and that was just one example, but we've had this come up in all of our areas of work. And I think I've tried to ask this question in the past, and we're still just not entirely clear at what level it's defined, because you could roll things up, or do we count it separately because it's being applied in completely different areas, even though it's still about data collection analysis. But if it's, two completely different data processes, can those be counted separately, or do you roll it up to like one big area of data collection analysis?
So is this a part of a systems change effort? Number one.
I would say the example that comes to my mind right away is work group participation. We make recommendations like this all the time. So, I guess the work group counts as that SC 1.5. So it would kind of be a collaborative effort.
Right.
I don't know. The topics though, every time you meet are different, but I would say, yes, it's kind of a collaborative.
It's a council systems change effort. The first test is it a council systems change effort? And then you're supporting a best practice. Well, is the best practice that's being supported, is it the same practice just being supported in different elements? I see what you're saying though. You want to roll it up or roll it down. And we can
Yeah, and another example would be like in the education arena, when we advocate for school inclusion, does everything impacting school inclusion get counted as the best practice of inclusive school or inclusive education? Or can we get more granular than that? It's been very unclear. I feel like everyone defines it at a different level, if that makes sense.
Sarah, do you have any guidance?
No, I think that you bring up some good points that, again, I know, Cheryl, that you're probably planning to do some office hours, and maybe it's a matter of kind of talking through this, and Jack and I can certainly sit in on those to help.
Yeah, I think we are expanding some office hour opportunities so that we can then get down to this type of question. So that you all have better information on how to report. Because, I can't assume what ACL is expecting. We need to hear from you all to see how you're interpreting this, so that then, we get the administration to really give us some more clear guidance there.
Okay, so let's move into section 5, which is council financial information. The fun stuff. So remember that you're going to report on 3 years of grant awards. And the information that's provided here is really to give a sense of obligation and liquidation status for the federal funds. So in this year's PPR, you're going to do a first year report for fiscal year 2023, a second year cumulative report for 2022, and a third year, which is also the final cumulative report for 2021 grant awards. The line item details have not changed. This is the same as last year, but we'll walk through all of them. Line 1 is your fiscal year. Line 2 is your reporting period. Verity pre-populates some dates in the system for reporting period. Disregard the dates because you need to be doing cumulative reporting for each award. Line 3 is your total federal fiscal award for the reporting year. So in other words, this is the amount on your notice of award, or if you had multiple notices of awards, it's the total of all of the amounts for the fiscal year. Line 4 is state funds contributing to council state plan activities. This means if your state gives money to your council and you use that money for state plan activities, you put that amount of money in line 4. That is state funds contributing to council state plan activities. Line 5 is additional council funds used for other activities. So if your state or territory gives your council money that is used, like, let's say for administrative purposes, you put that amount of money in line 5 because it is council funds used for other activities.
So let me just weigh in here. So you all are looking at line 5 and you're looking at the words that say additional council funds used for other activities, and it makes no sense to you. This is what I hear. It's so you kind of look at the description because it's additional money a council receives. So it's not really talking about council federal funds. It's that other money that a council receives to do other things, other like administrative. Sorry, Amy. It's just that wording throws everybody off. And I think we've just got to make sure you all know what it really is intended to do there.
Yeah. Okay, line 6 is
Excuse
federal-
me, can I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Okay,
Sure.
So when you say other money, not from state or federal, do you mean from other sources?
Not other sources. I'm trying to think what another source, I guess, and this is specific to non-state plan activities. So like if you had other money, non-federal funds that somebody gave you to help pay your staff, that
Okay.
would go here. So it's not necessarily like, you know, if you got a grant from a foundation to supplement some of your work, that kind of thing. But it needs to be money, actual money.
Okay, can you just give me, for example, say you are with any of the council. So what will you refer to as, just create a scenario and just explain things to us, please.
Tell me what scenario you would like. I'm sorry.
Like, for example, let's say you are a program specialist and you're to report this information on this federal report this coming year. Say you reach this question, line 5. Say you had monies, you receive money from the Fed, you receive money from the state, and what then will you consider as this other additional fund?
Okay, so if the state gave your council money to cover fringe benefit for staff, to cover
Okay.
indirect costs, and Craig Hall, I'm just gonna, you've given me some good ideas here. Indirect costs for payroll for staff. So really, there are some councils whose state appropriate money to help the council with their general management costs, their administrative costs. So it's not state plan activities, it's other than state plan, which means administrative. So think about it in terms of helping meet payroll, fringe benefits, including retirement, healthcare, those other indirect costs.
Thank you very much.
line 6 is your federal share of expenditure. So this is the amount of federal funds that have been spent from the fiscal year award. Line 7 is federal share of unliquidated obligations. So the amount of federal funds that you've obligated but have not spent. Line 8 is unobligated balance of federal funds. To get the amount that goes in line 8, you look at your total federal fiscal year award, so that's line 3, and subtract the federal share of expenditures, which is line 6, and then subtract from that the federal share of unliquidated obligations, which is line 7. And what you get from that math goes in line 8 as your unobligated balance of federal funds. Line 9 is match required. Let's see, there's something in the chat. Okay. Line 9 is match required, and this is going to vary, and it must reflect the varieties of match that your council calculated for projects and activities. And it has to be consistent with the DD Act, section 126A, 1 through 3. Line 10 is the amount of match that was met. So the amount of match that was received for the fiscal year. And line 11 is match unmet. So again, you'll do some math. You'll take line 9, which is match required, subtract line 10, which is the match met from that. And the answer to that is your match unmet, line 11. Our big tip here is we know that you may not have fiscal people on staff, or you might not be the person who does this part of the reporting, and you get this information from your fiscal people. Those fiscal people might be with your DSA. Contact those people early on to get the ball rolling, to get the information that you need. Sometimes it takes a little while to get these numbers from them, and you need this information. You don't want this to be what's holding up submission of your PPR. Okay, and then moving on from there is the last section, measures of collaboration. And here you are going to discuss collaborative work that occurred during the reporting period with a specific DD network partner and or other collaborators that has not been reported in previous sections of the report. This is not where you are reporting on your planned DD network collaboration goal and objective. This is other collaboration. You want to make sure that you describe the issue or the barrier that you worked on, the area of emphasis addressed, the collaborative strategies used, the council's role and responsibilities, any problems that you encountered, and any unexpected benefits of the collaborative effort. And also indicate if your council staff can provide technical assistance or expertise to other councils in this area. And then finally, we're just a note on record keeping. Keep a copy of the PPR that you submitted. And once your PPR has been reviewed and approved by the program specialist, make sure that you go back in and download a copy of that and keep it on file. This is mainly just for your benefit. Hopefully there are absolutely no problems with Verity at all. But it is much easier to have a copy of the work that you have already generated in case things have to be re-entered than having to redo the work and then re-enter. So just keep a copy of everything that you submitted. It might save you some time down the road. And then finally, we always want to make sure that we end with our contact information. If you have questions, you can always reach out to Cheryl and myself, and our email addresses are on this slide. And then the email addresses for Sarah and Jack, the program specialists with OIDD, are also here in case you needed to contact them.
Sarah, do you have any last word?
Just want to thank everyone for your participation today and thank the iTech team for a great presentation. Certainly, as you start doing the report, my understanding is the Verity system will open on November 1st to begin entry of the PPR. So as you run into questions, either content-wise, reach out to OIDD or iTech, and then certainly with the system to reach out to the Verity help desk. But we're here for you, and yeah, I would just thank you all for attending today.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And I know you guys are just excited about PPR season. I can feel it in the room. I just know that you're going to do stellar reporting this year. Seriously, we will be announcing our TA office hours. We will identify the topic of the of what we'll take up during office hours, but feel free to bring your other questions forward. Jason, you have your a question.
Yeah, thanks again for the guidance. I think it was really helpful. So appreciate both of y'all being here to do that. An ask I have, and it may be a no, is it might require, OMB clearance. Is there any way possible, because we struggle with this, I know, at our council, the character counts for the progress report section in particular, about increasing that maybe to the 50,000, and then have the introduction section instead of 50,000, have that at 10,000. Like, is that something that Verity could implement before November 1st by chance?
We can certainly bring that up to them and see if that's possible. I don't foresee that being a huge issue, but I don't know the technical aspects of it, so I could talk with them.
Yeah, if y'all could pass it on, that would be great.
And Jason, that would make the network extremely happy.
Oh, I'm sure. I know as I said, we struggle with it just due to the number of activities. Sometimes we develop our 5-year plan, and if under a particular objective, we may have a certain number of activities, but we may add some additional activities throughout the year. And then it's just extremely difficult to get it to under 10,000 characters in that section. So that would be extremely helpful if we could increase that section in particular to 50,000.
And just for fun, if you're in agreement with that, put a thumbs up in the chat or something so that Sarah's got some data to take back. Anything else that you all want to bring up? There you go, Sarah. There's your great data collection, participatory evaluation right there. Look at Catherine putting 4 thumbs up, so we're going to get extra votes in. Well, thank you all, and we look forward to our office hour information coming up. We are not going to do look towards the end of October to start. We do know that lots of people are wrapping up your fiscal year and, getting all of your stuff lined up for staff assignments or however you organize. So we'll be pushing that out in October so that you will know what's coming up. And as always, we're here to support you. I do want to thank the work group members that helped really kind of look through all of these documents to say, you're asking us the same questions over and over and over. Can we stop it? So we hope that some of these changes really we've tried to reduce the redundancy, and we hope that you all will benefit from not having to repeat yourself so often, and maybe the frustration level will decrease just a tad. I know it's not perfect, but we do know. And yes, we have a couple of questions on the PPR template. I do need to really look at that. That is an ACL generated document rather than an ITAC generated document. So
Cheryl, I'll get you the OMB approved template.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
It's the same template essentially. I mean,
okay,
that we're talking about today. So, but I'll get you for the website.
Thank you. So we'll get that posted, and I will let all of you know when it's ready. And all of the slides will be posted on the website. You'll have those tomorrow morning, and there will be a Spanish version as well. So thank you all, and have a great rest of the day and weekend.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Did I miss what is the due date? The 30th and the 31st are both weekends. Is that the due date, or is it December 29th? It's like a Saturday and a Sunday. I might have missed it. I did have to step away for a second.
The due date, the official due date for the PPR is December 30th.
Okay, great.
I realize that's a Saturday. Nobody expects you to work on Saturday, but you have it should you need it.
Cheryl, is that the same? Cheryl, is that the same due date for the SOGI spreadsheet?
It is.
Okay.
It is. You can always submit early. Nobody will fuss. And here's the final question. Yes, this webinar will be posted on the website once we finish. We are looking to begin office hours in later October. That means past the 15th. And yes, I can, Amy and I will stop the recording and we'll hang out should you have very specific questions. So other than that, you all are free to sign off. Thank you, interpreters. Thank you, everyone.